Now, a Rwandan court has found a former hotel manager who was portrayed as a hero in a Hollywood film about the 1994 genocide, guilty of being part of a group responsible for terrorist attacks. He's been sentenced to 25 years in jail. Paul Rusesa-bagina, who's now 67, was celebrated around the world after being portrayed by actor Don Cheadle in the film Hotel Rwanda. He's a vocal critic of President Paul Kagame, but has denied all charges and says he was kidnapped from Dubai this year to be put on trial. His supporters called the trial a sham and proof of Mr Kagame's ruthless treatment of political opponents. Prosecutors had sought a life sentence for Mr Rusesabagina on 9 charges, including terrorism, arson, taking hostages and forming an armed rebel group which he was said to have directed from abroad. And Arise correspondent Itoro Udofia has been taking a closer look at the story, and she joins me now. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Mr Rusesabagina receiving a lengthy prison sentence. Tell us more.
Yes, so 25 years, and he's 67 years old. So his lawyers and his family say that most likely he'll spend the rest of his life there if they can't
Basically
overturn.
a life sentence.
Yeah, it is, if they can't overturn the sentence.
And his family says the trial was a theatre show and a charade. Do they have a point?
They do, and they're not the only ones who say that. He has many international supporters who are saying that this trial wasn't fair from the very beginning to the very verdict. His daughter, Karine Kanimba, says he did not have proper access to his lawyers, and also said that he was tortured. He was put in solitary confinement, he was gagged in the duration of this trial. So the other thing to mention is that he's also been boycotting this trial since March, saying that there's no way he would get a fair trial in Rwanda.
Yes, he didn't actually turn up at the conviction and the sentencing. And the family say that President Paul Kagame would want to silence Mr Rusesabagina. What would be the reason for wanting to silence him?
He's a very public figure. And, you know, when Hotel Rwanda came out, he shot to international acclaim. He's a hero. So he's a hero with a huge platform who's been very critical of the Rwandan government, but particularly President Paul Kagame for a very long time. So there's a need to silence his voice, but there's also a need to reset the narrative of him being a hero. This is definitely a fall from grace.
And the charges against Mr Rusesabagina that he faced in this month-long trial of being the mastermind of a rebel group that carried out attacks in Rwanda, what's the evidence for that?
I just want to point out that, again, a key player has not been participating in this trial. So we don't have his story. But what we do know is that the judge ruling said that he is guilty, and 20 defendants along with him, of arming the illegal armed group called the National Liberation Front, and they are the democratic wing of the Rwandan Movement for Democratic Change. And they say specifically that by funding these fighters, who carried out several attacks in southern Rwanda, 9 people in 2018 ended up dead.
Okay, Itoro, thanks very much indeed. Itoro Udofia, Arise correspondent.